Uploading.
I look forward to your report, Mr. Broccoli. Barclay.
One of the greatest aspects of Trek is that it shows us a world where people of different stripes work together to make the universe a better place. From those who are socially awkward, to those who have physical maladies, to those whom don't openly suffer from anything that we can observe. And everything in between. If you were a part of the Federation, and specifically Starfleet, you made a difference. I guess before we get too far into this analysis of Reginald Barclay, we need to go ahead and address mental disabilities. And to clarify something from some posts I did recently, at first I thought intellectual disabilities was the same thing as mental disabilities, that it was a more politically correct way of saying the term. Unfortunately, based on what I'm reading, I'm actually wrong. Mental disability is much more broad than intellectual disability. Mental disability is basically an umbrella. Anyway, let's analyze that briefly so we can have a base understanding to move forward. The problem with society, specifically American audiences if I'm being honest, is that if a disorder is one that can be commonly shared among the population to a minimal level, then everyone assumes the more moderate to extreme cases of that disability aren't actually a problem. Those who have an extreme version of, say, being shy just need to quote-unquote man up and get over it. Also, apparently a lot of you think that somehow mental disability is always linked to intelligence. And I mean, just Jesus Christ, guys, US public school systems have failed us. While having a lower IQ does make you more vulnerable to having mental disability, it is not the end-all be-all for it. Mental disability is, as I've stated, a catch-all for ailments that you have mentally. That's not always the result of a low IQ. Shyness, scared of being judged, considering oneself as inferior, all are disorders that can be debilitating. They can be a disability, and they aren't always linked to intelligence. It is highly likely that Reginald Barclay had mental disorders and could be classified as mentally disabled. And yes, he was an absolute genius. Stay mad, malegoists, cause I'm just telling you what I've researched. I'm not a doctor, but I did actually talk to a few psychologists before doing this video, and it's amazing the things I have to research and who I have to talk to nowadays. From those I talked to, they stated it's quite possible that Barclay has avoidant personality disorder, addiction, and other health conditions. It is also possible that he is on the spectrum. But I will say this, as I always have, to be very clear. If you're on the spectrum, you have avoidant personality disorder or anything else, it doesn't make you a bad person, it doesn't make you inferior. And if your disability has informed who you are and made you a better person, then that's great. It's my personal opinion we all have things that we have to overcome. For instance, I have an inability to be embarrassed. I can also be hard to get along with. We all have things that make us us. Okay, so with all of that out of the way, I'll at least try to pretend that this is a science fiction channel with a focus on Star Trek, so let's get into some Trek.
Mr. Barclay, I'm tired of seeing your name on report. I don't know what you got away with at your last posting, but this is the Enterprise. We set a different standard here. Understood. Understood, sir.
Lieutenant Reginald Endicott Barclay III was an extremely intelligent and creative human that served aboard the USS Enterprise D, USS Enterprise E, at Starfleet headquarters, and had other deployments. He was well known as a systems diagnostic engineer initially, but would expand his ability to work with computers and systems well beyond that. One of his greatest accomplishments was being able to help Starfleet Command talk to the USS Voyager, which had been stranded in the Delta Quadrant. However, before all of that, Reginald Barclay was a failing officer that no one took an interest in, until Geordi LaForge was forced to. In fact, let's focus on that a moment. One of the things we constantly see is Starfleet Medical's inability to address problems that humanity has had since the dawn of time. Whether these issues involve the basic concepts of a splint, or it involves someone who is socially awkward even to the point of disability, this is seen quite clearly in the mannerisms of Lieutenant Barclay. Reg, as he would soon become known to his friends, was a Starfleet officer that ultimately made people uncomfortable and didn't know how to act around others. And apparently no counselors or doctors knew how to work with him through that. That said, I do presume that even though he wasn't liked, he was pretty good at his job. After all, obtaining the rank of lieutenant isn't really a small feat. However, as I stated, the officers that served with him, who presumably have never been to sensitivity or interpersonal skills training seminars, simply tried to have him transferred to other vessels. In fact, the need to get rid of him would be so great that a recommendation to have him placed on the USS Enterprise D, flagship of the Federation, would be approved due to a captain lying. Reg, wanting to have friends and not knowing how, would be driven deeper into introversion and then form an addiction to the holodeck. Diagnosing a person takes actual interactions with them. It takes time and study. That's quite clearly impossible for any of us to really determine what Reg may or may not have had. However, we can take educated guesses as well as have some inferences.
Being afraid all of the time of forgetting somebody's name, not knowing what to do with your hands. I mean, I am the guy who writes down things to remember to say when there's a party.
As stated, the man most likely had avoidant personality disorder, which would fall under general anxiety disorder. He also had addiction. While it goes against the American macho complex, these are very real battles that Barclay had to deal with, and it was likely a special kind of hell for him. These disorders would prevent him from showing whom he really was to people. He was extremely intelligent, creative, and a committed friend. But no one saw that because he wasn't able to show it. But in all this, what's ironic, to me at least, is that in order for Barclay to shine, he only really needed someone to believe in him.
People that I create in there are more real to me than anyone I meet out here. Except maybe you, Commander.
I need you out here, Reg. Now more than ever.
Huh?
Someone who may not have even wanted to, but was forced to take a chance on the man. In the TNG episode Hollow Pursuits, the ship begins to start having a series of mechanical malfunctions that are getting progressively worse and worse. The senior staff, known for being able to identify an issue and solve it in under 60 minutes, are baffled at what's causing it. They have some ideas, but Barclay is already on the case. He's already identified what it probably is. Unfortunately, the man's social awkwardness and addiction prevents him from being able to assist him. If this keeps up, the problem may even take 75 minutes to solve with everything happening, and they simply don't have that. LaForge, again being ordered by Captain Picard, but taking it personally, would not give up on Reg and continued to try to reach out to him.
Nice work, Geordi.
Mr. Barclay and I thank you, sir.
Acknowledged.
The ship has been seriously contaminated with Invidium, sir. Recommend we set a course for Starbase 121 for a complete systems and bio decontamination.
Understood. Picard out.
Glad you were with us out here in the real world today, Mr. Barclay.
I could talk to you guys about how Reg saves the day, and it wouldn't be the only time that he does it for the Enterprise, but the real victory in this episode, for me, is that while he did have to rely on LaForge to break free of the things that were gripping him, Reginald was the one to ultimately turn away from his addiction and find a way to operate with others to confront his social issues. Now, I'll be honest, I don't have an adequate understanding of psychology to say that a mental disability could ever be fixed or cured. It's something that, unlike a broken arm, we all have to continually deal with. To have your brain tell you something, like you're not worthy or they won't like you, or to have it limit your ability to interact with others, is a special kind of pain. For those who are able to find a way to exist within society while still dealing with this, is something awesome, something that deserves accolades. For me, to watch Reg have to deal in a world that doesn't interpret the universe as he does, and to overcome those limitations, to be able to help get in contact with Voyager, to save the Enterprise like he does, to have a quote-unquote normal, if we're going to use that, life, is awesome. Barclay would go on to become critical to Starfleet and assist them in countless ways. In my opinion, his ability to do so while having to constantly have this thing on his back makes him mighty. That's just me. What do you think? Did he have a mental disability? Was it what I said, or do you think it's something else? How mad are you at me right now? How have I messed up mental disability and we're going to be canceling me for the 5th time on Twitter? Let me know in the comments below. And remember guys, in the end, all of our lives are stories. Make yours a good one.